We're very excited because today is actually our final AuthorConnect Chat of the year, which is exciting. And we have a great guest lined up for you today. So welcome, everyone. I'm Carlin Hickson. I'm your host. I work with authors, publishers, agents, publicists, marketers, editors, and other industry partners here at BookPal, where we believe books have the power to ignite continuous learning and growth. Today, we will be talking with our guest about his new book, Blue Collar Cash: Love Your Work, Secure Your Future, and Find Your Happiness for Life. Such a great promise. So for the first few minutes today, we're just going to learn a little bit about the new book, and then we'll have time for a Q&A chat. So please do feel free to jump in with any questions you have below in the chat box or in the Q&A section. As with every AuthorConnect chat, please do be sure to stay on until the end, because 3 lucky winners will be receiving a free signed copy of Blue Collar Cash. Quick reminder just to keep yourself muted today during today's presentation. And we will be sending the recording along to all attendees next week. Our guest today is blue-collar construction business entrepreneur Ken Rusk, who has launched multiple successful endeavors over the last 30 years. For the first many years of his young working life, he dug ditches for a basement repair company in northern Ohio. Over the years, he dug his way to a good life, one shovel of dirt at a time, and is now teaching others to do the same. Ken has extensive experience in hiring, training, and developing first-time job seekers, particularly those without college degrees. He lives in Toledo, Ohio, where he runs Rusk Industries Incorporated, which specializes in various forms of construction. Please join me today in welcoming our esteemed guest, Ken Rusk.
Hi there. Thanks so much for having me, and happy holidays to everybody. I hope everyone's out there trying to be safe and staying well through this challenging season. So,
absolutely, yes. So we're excited to hear just a little bit about your story today, Ken, and how you came to write Blue Collar Cash.
Well, you know, it's funny because when I was younger, I remember being around 15, 16 years old when I was in high school, and my high school, it had a fence that was connected to an industrial park. It split the properties between the two, and there was a hole in that fence, and my buddies and I would always go through the hole in that fence to go to the carryout after school and hang out, just like kids would do back in those days. And I remember walking by this business that was really bustling, had a lot of energy, a lot of the things that guys like, and and kids like, tools and tractors and dump trucks and people running all over the place. And I remember saying, wow, there's a lot of energy there. I think I'd like to see what's going on there, because like everybody else, I needed gas money. I needed, pizza money money to go out on dates and that kind of thing, buy my first used car. So I got a job there, and we were basically ditch diggers. I mean, that's what we did. And I did that for many years. In fact, I still work for the same company several decades later. And one of the things that I noticed throughout that whole time was this change in the balance of blue-collar workers and the supply of blue-collar workers in the marketplace. I think one of the challenges that we had early on was, like in the 70s and 80s, they eliminated shop class and replaced those rooms with computers. Now, obviously, we all needed to learn computers. They're an essential part of our life, but I never really thought that it was a binary choice, meaning you had to learn one or the other. So we kind of eliminated the accidental discovery of millions of kids to discover trades like carpentry, plumbing, machining, welding, electricians, those kinds of things. And what happened was, I feel like we steered or potentially oversteered too many of our kids towards college degrees. And now we have this supply and demand upset or imbalance. And after hiring, hundreds of people over the last 30 some years, I noticed that there had begun to become almost a stigma towards the blue collar world. And I thought, well, that seems to be unfair, because first off, nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, being a finished carpenter or a plumber owning your own business is a very honorable thing to do. But the other thing is, because of the society and the way things are going now, where, you know, kids aren't building tree forts in their backyard, they're using Minecraft to build a fort on their screens at home. They're not really discovering those types of activities, whether it be anything that has to do with working with your hands. So we've got this imbalance in the supply and demand of blue collar workers, and what that does is, and as you know, it's a powerful force. So whenever supply is low and the demand is high, that's where the money goes. And I just really wanted to kind of portray, get back to the world of the honor and the lucrative opportunity that there is in the blue collar world. So, you know, I started writing down the things that I was doing when I was coaching, and I started writing down, you know, some of the concepts that I was using to try to build really loyal long-term employees, because there's a lot of competition for those folks right now. So lo and behold, I started writing a letter to my daughter about what I thought was important, and this whole thing just kind of came together, and here we are, 80,000 words later with Blue Collar Cash. So again, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
I love that so much, that it started with just a letter about what's important to your daughter. I mean, when you started that, even though, I mean, I guess at that point, did you have an idea that you had the material for a book, or did you see how this would come into play later in your life as an author?
I think the interesting thing was, the more people kind of read about some of the things that we do to create a really cool culture. Again, I still work in that same business, and it's construction. It's dump trucks and jackhammers and dust and concrete and tar and shovels. And I really needed to create a really cool culture in order to retain people. And I wanted to build long-term loyal employees who could see that they could get anything they wanted in their life with and through our company. And to me, once you empower somebody to think that, wow, I can make my life happen the way I see it for myself with and through your organization, you kind of get out of their way, and they end up taking your company a lot further than you might have trying to do it all by yourself. You know, one of the things I've always said was, I can't get what I want, nor can my company get what it wants until all of you get what you want first. And we started with six employees, and now we have over 200. So it's a pretty big, powerful force that drives this company every single day. As far as knowing I had a book, you know, I have to tell you that my wife said to me one day, you know, this coaching thing seems to really work for you. You might want to get this message beyond the four walls of your company. And I got really lucky. I found myself an editor, and the process just went straight from there. I never thought this book would go 10 feet, much less the 10 miles that it's gone. And very blessed and very grateful to have that happen.
That's so amazing. Yeah, it is a tough journey to become an author. So congratulations on that, first and foremost.
Thank you.
And it's just exciting. You started with 6 and then turned it into 200 people over the span of, I guess, the last 20, 30 years, right?
Right.
Okay. Wow. You speak about creating a cool culture, which definitely is something that, you know, we talk to our clients about a lot of authors I speak to. I guess, so how did you go about kind of creating that framework, or kind of what are your tenets of that framework that you speak to your employees about?
Well, you know, there's lots of things that are pretty superficial that work well. I mean, you have to have a really fun environment. You have to have an acknowledging environment. You know, things like music and birthdays and anniversaries, all that kind of stuff works really well. But for us, it was all about having the people understand that, again, I can't do this by myself. I want to win, but I want you to win as well. So if somebody believes that you have their best interests in mind, they're going to go to the wall for you. And that's why I say, for me, whenever somebody comes in, one of the first things that we do is we get out a big white piece of cardboard and some good old-fashioned Crayola crayons, and we have them sit down and we have them draw out what they want their life to look like, you know, what their version of comfort, peace, and freedom is. And this is a really simple thing to do, especially if you think about how much effort it takes to constantly hire and train and rehire and retrain, and turnover is high, and all the expense and inefficiencies of that, I would rather put my energies towards the positive side of things and retain those people so I don't have to get involved in a lot of that turnover. But to me, the most important thing is to have somebody understand that when they come to work with you, and I know I don't usually say for you, but work with you, they are in control of their own input, and therefore they're in control of their own output. And if you put the two of those things together, that also means they're in control of their income. So I've always said, if you have a vocational passion and some type of life vision, that's the true path towards comfort, peace, and freedom. And that picture can look different for anybody. You would be amazed how different the pictures are once they draw them out. And we ask them to get really detailed. You know, are you a house person or a condo person? Are you an apartment person in the city? You want to live in the country? Are you a minivan person or a pickup person, or are you a electric car person or public transit? Are you a dog or a cat person, or what kind, and what would you name it? We asked them to get really deep into what their give back moment is. If you had extra money, what charity would you support and why? We talked to them about what their hobbies are, what their sports are, how they take care of themselves. And they really have to build this picture almost like they're putting a puzzle together. And once they see it, and once they say, wow, this is what would make me, enter that world of comfort, peace, and freedom, believe me, you just get out of their way, and they're now a self-managing, goal-oriented person, which really helps to drive your company further than you can drive it yourself.
That is so fantastic. Rachel had mentioned to us, I love this. And I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, I think that's such a unique conversation that your company is having with everybody, because I can't say that every job I've ever had, there's a lot of conversations about, okay, well, what do you want in your personal life though? And how can, in tandem through working at this organization, how can we help you achieve your goals? And I think that's really, really fascinating to take that kind of personal approach. Is that kind of from day one with like your HR, or just with every single team within your organization that you have those conversations?
Yes, it is. It starts with HR. And I can tell you there, another thing that we do is we have a big glass board. It's like a black plexiglass board that hangs in our hallway. It's about 8 feet wide and 8 feet tall. And we have these colored markers that we have people come out. And they're almost like the markers that you would see on a margarita menu out in front of a bar, the brightly colored markers on black glass. And we have them actually write these goals down that they have on the board with absolute clarity and absolute certainty. When they're going to start, when they're going to end. Let's say I had a gal that wanted to pay her father back $2,500 that she owed him for a car. And it always just kind of weighed on her mind. And she said, someday I'm going to pay him back. And I said, no, how about today? Okay, let's change that from a someday to a 2-day goal. I said, can you afford $48 a week? And she said, well, yeah. I said, okay, you'll have him paid off in a year. Well, she looked at me like I had just invented penicillin, okay? When in fact, I just took her all the way through this path of clarity of a goal. She did that, paid her dad off. Now she went on to get married. She went on to buy her first house. She bought her first car, her first new car. And again, you can't believe the power that there is in getting someone to understand that they are in control of their own life and the way they see it. Once they do, all you have to do is find as many of those folks as you can, and your company's just going to launch like you never would imagine.
Absolutely. Rachel had just mentioned to us, it's about holistic, intrinsic, authentic values. She's in love. She said it's a bit late for her to take up a trade, but had she been exposed to it as a girl, she would have in a heartbeat, which you touched on in mentioning that schools, maybe have moved away from that technical tech ed shop type class, although I remember taking it and really liking it. So I'm glad I got to do that. Do you think now with COVID that hopefully the stigma, if you will, for blue collar versus white collar jobs, excuse me, do you think that that's going away at all? Maybe with people having to pivot their careers if they've lost any kind of job, or if they're just trying to reinvent themselves during this time?
Well, that's a really great question. I can tell you this, if you look at the industries now that are red hot, it's anything to do with recreation, like kayaks or sports equipment or RVs or campers. If you look at anything around the home that either fixes, replaces, repairs, improves, remodels, anything from wood to plaster to painting to, again, carpentry, plumbing, all those trades, they're all red hot right now. And it's funny how it takes something like this for people to reset their thinking, because there are a lot of people were staying home going, well, I have to stay home. Let me look around my house and I'm going to fix that. Okay. So then they call the plumber and the guy says, yeah, I'll be there in 3 months. And they're like, well, wait a minute. I mean, you're a plumber. What do you mean 3 months? Well, yeah, I'm a plumber. I have 6 vans. I have 20 employees. I'm doing very well for myself, and I can't keep up with all the business that I have right now. So it is kind of a reset of thinking. And, one of the things that I hope, and this is one of the things that I work on almost every day, is getting places to realize things like programs like Junior Achievement and those other types of things, to realize that there is a huge black hole of supply problem right now. And it's going to be this way for quite a long period of time. We probably should balance out how many non-specific degrees that we're pumping out into society with kids that go to school just because they were told they had to, and they come out and with all they have is debt and no prospects. We should probably balance that a little bit with more tech schools, more apprenticeships, that type of thing, back in the old days. Because again, if there's 165 million people working in the United States today, fully 60 to 70% of them are doing something with their hands. And, that's a statistic or a number that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Wow. I actually didn't realize it was that high. So 60 to 75% are doing something with their hands, but you're saying because a lot of people are going to college, pursuing, degrees that maybe are a bit non-specific, in a lot of cases, there's just a complete lack of supply of workers that are skilled to do those 60 to 75% of the jobs out there.
Yeah, see, I've said this many times. I'm not an anti-college guy. I'm really not. I'm just an anti-colleges for every single person guy. Okay, it was never intended to be that way. If it went that way, who would build our bridges? Who would do things like open bakeries and flower shops and hairdressing and skin and esthetician? I mean, all those types of things that are perfectly awesome businesses that you can open. Who would do a lot of those things like landscaping and concrete work and building houses if everybody pursued these degrees? So we just have to be really careful that we're setting our worker balance correctly in the United States today. And one of the things I try to do with Blue Collar Cash is to get people to recognize that it doesn't matter if it's a blue collar or a white collar job. If you know what you want out of life, this is a little bit controversial, but sometimes it's not so important what you do for a living is what you do with what you do for a living. Okay. And that's how it was for me. I mean, if you put ditch digging on the list of things that I wanted to be a race car driver, like every kid wanted to be. So, but I recognized that I was in control of my own destiny, and I put a lot of really serious goals in front of me that I could chase. And then I kind of grew within the business. So I think envisioning what you want your life to look like first is most important, and then finding an occupation that can support that.
Absolutely. The answer to this might be yes, but I'm just curious, do you get a lot of interaction to coach like graduating high school seniors, as they kind of decide, okay, is the college path for me, or maybe it's not?
The answer is yes. What we're trying to do, though, some of the programs that we're working with, they're trying to catch kids more like in 7th and 8th grade before they've been too corralled down the path of college prep. A lot of these high schools now, and I don't think anyone ever did it on purpose, it just kind of evolved this way. But all of a sudden you hear about all these high schools are college prep schools. Well, what does that even mean? I mean, okay, so does that mean if I'm not a college prep person, I'm less than the guy or gal who is? A quick funny story. There's a gal who was trying to get a 2-year degree that I know very well. And it took her several years to try to get this 2-year degree in school, and she really wasn't using it for anything. And the final class she needed was an elective, and she took a welding class at the behest of one of her friends. Hey, take this welding class, it was fun. Well, someone who had no idea how to weld, had no intention of being a welder, is now standing on top of a 300-foot windmill in Northwest Ohio, making $125,000 a year as a welder. So
Wow.
it's amazing what you can accomplish if you just open your mind to the possibilities of it and kind of shut down that stigma of, if I'm not a college grad, I'm less than. I mean, that's just
Right.
crazy talk. And I'm just trying to push that in Blue Collar Cash to get people to recognize that whether it's a white or a blue collar thing, let's first figure out what we want our life to look like and then make that decision so that we don't put the cart before the horse here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in the back of your book, I think you have an appendix too with like a lot of different job types and roles, even with some salaries so that people can see, hey,
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. I was reading it and I was like, wow, I wouldn't have even thought of all of these jobs and roles. I think it's just about awareness for students and kids these days to know what job tracks are out there. So I think Blue Collar Cash is really bringing a lot of enlightenment to that conversation, which is amazing.
You know, it's funny because in our town, a blue collar, or a finished carpenter, which is a blue collar job, is that's a job where you can make up to $52 an hour. Okay,
Wow.
you put that out there with a typical work week of one of those of a carpenter, 40, 50-hour work week. They're making as much as family doctors are. Okay, with no debt and no 8 or 10 years of school. So one of the things that we talk about is this swing. If you're in college and you're doing a $40,000 to $50,000 a year college with all the expenses involved, that's about a $200,000 investment you're making over 4 years. Now, you know, God forbid you decide, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the blue collar world, get one of these trades going. You start at, you know, 40 to 50,000 a year there. So now after 4 years, you're making 200,000 to the other person who is either borrowed or owed or spent 200,000. That's a $400,000 swing in your asset base by the time you're 22, 23 years of age. That's enough money to buy a house, buy a car, fund your 401k, which I highly recommend doing. You know, so you really have to be thinking about what are the other options. And again, I'm not saying college isn't right. If you're going to operate on my shoulder, or you're going to teach somebody something, or if you're going to, you know, maybe design a building, you need to do that. But if you're just going for one of these nondescript degrees, you might want to have a conversation about some other opportunities.
So true. So you touched on finances, and I am just curious. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of your tips for retirement planning for people starting out, and just for people who, you know, like myself, I'm 13, 14 years into my career, and I'm just wondering, have I saved enough? Am I saving enough? I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of resources out there, but I'd love to hear your take on it.
You know, some of the simplest things in the world are I just wish I knew this at 19 or 20. I didn't find out till I was about 30, this particular bit of information. So let's assume that someone hires you and they say, I'm going to pay you $40,000 a year. The first thing I want you to say is, thank you for paying me $37,000 a year. Because I want you to forget about that first 3,000 as if you never had it. You don't miss it. You never had it. You can't spend it. It's not even there. You take that first 3,000, which is basically $60 a week, you put that into a 401k. If you're 21 years old, 22 years old, and you start that process, you can stop saving that $60 a week in 10 years and just sit on that. And by the time you retire, you're going to have over $1 million in your 401k account.
Oh, wow.
Now, if you try to do that when you're 35 or 40 years of age, you're going to need to save till you're 65 in order to have that same amount of money in there. It's amazing what the power of young money and the compounding interest of starting very early can do. And then, you know, in our 401k program, which is like most, we match a quarter on every dollar that somebody saves. So if you try to save $1 on your own, you're going to pay taxes and save 75 cents every week. You're going to put 75 cents in your bank account. If you do that in a 401k, you're going to get $1.25. So you're already making 25% on your money instead of losing 25%. Now, eventually you'll pay taxes on it, but that's not till you're 65 after all the gains you've had. So you're jumping the gun in a major way by starting early. And I am absolutely shocked that they don't teach this stuff in high school. We've got probably 40 401k millionaires working in our company who know that their retirement is just handled. And they're 23, 25, 28 years old. They don't even think about it anymore. It's just part of their daily life. And it's just such an easy thing for an employer to put that out there for someone. It's an awesome benefit. Show them how it works, and then have them, again, they're sitting at their club or they're sitting at the gym or the bar with their buddies going, yeah, my retirement's handled already. And they're that young. So I think it's a really powerful thing to start early if you can get the chance.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I wish this were taught in high schools or, even college. I did business classes, and I felt like even graduating college, I'm thinking we could have definitely talked about a few more real life applicable things, the job search, a little bit on the resume was touched on, but
Sure.
How to start saving, how to set yourself up financially. So this is really helpful. I'm going to keep saving.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch on coaching, since you're an awesome coach and mentor, and that's really a huge part of your culture. How did you start that process? Starting with a company of 6, how did you recognize that you had some of the strengths and abilities to be a good coach? And how does one go about either becoming a coach or mentor, or finding the right coach or mentor for themselves?
Well, first off, one of the things that happened early on was, it was me and it was 6 guys and gals, and we had to just grind it out all on our own. And so if you lost one person, you're losing a lot of people because that's a big percentage of your workforce. I had a gentleman who still works with us today, and that's 33 years later. He started with us when he was 19. He had some medical bills, and his wife had some complications from a pregnancy, and he was trying to get out of his apartment, and he just had some heavy things. And he really liked working there because he could control his own destiny. But he thought, Ken, I think I might have to find something, that like go work in a factory or something, which isn't bad work, but that's not what he wanted. So we literally just sat down with a piece of paper and not crayons at the time, but just a bunch of pens and pencils. And we just drew out what his vision was, and he followed it to the letter. I mean, he got off the bills, he got out of the debt, he got out of the apartment, he saved money. He bought a piece of land contract from a farmer, and then he built a house on it. And now he's put 4 kids through their whole scenario, and some of them went to college and some didn't. And it just worked so well that we talked a lot about it, and other people wanted to kind of get involved in that. So I would encourage, and here's the thing, I take about less than 1% credit for his success. All I did was get out a piece of paper and some writing utensils and say, let's draw what you want your life to look like. I went to college for like 2 months, and I knew I couldn't do it. It wasn't for me. I'm certainly not trained in coaching. I don't have any degrees or anything to back that up. I just cared. I just asked the question, what do you want? I mean, why are you here, and what will make your life awesome? Because if your life is awesome, chances are mine's going to be awesome. And if we can find a bunch of other people that are doing the same thing, we're going to have this amazing power force within this organization. So I think everybody can do this. I mean, if you have employees, you need to ask that question, especially nowadays with this kind of what's in it for me to work here kind of thing, which is totally the opposite of what it was like 20, 30 years ago, where it was like, why should I hire you? Well, now you have to answer that question because they can job shop you 6 ways from Sunday. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, if somebody has a real clear idea of what they want going forward, you just need to take advantage of that and get that out in the open, and then have them start seeing some wins, and you're going to have the greatest people in the world.
I love that. Okay, one final question, just because we touched on culture a little bit earlier. I don't know if people have asked you this, just people you speak to regularly, or maybe clients, or maybe at your own company. So with COVID, obviously, a lot of people have had to work from home, or are maybe continuing to work from home, at least in some capacity. What's your greatest advice for just continuing to have a good culture that, promotes connectivity, connection and communication, despite, work from home scenario?
Well, I can tell you this. It's one of the most overused words in 2020, the word virtual. Okay. I look at it this way. Anything that you've had to do virtually, you have to consider, or I'm sorry, anything that you've had to do virtually in 2020 that you didn't do before then, you have to consider trying to find ways to stay connected to your people in the same exact manner. You can sing happy birthday over a camera. Like I could sing happy birthday to you right now. Okay. You could celebrate the wins and the bonus checks, and you can do these food drop off things that we do here. You can talk about goals. You can talk about, hey, what are you doing while you're at home? What have you looked around your house? Is there something you want to fix or improve? Or you can talk about goal setting. You can talk about it as a 6-month thing, as a 1-year thing, as a 10-year or 20-year thing. So I look at it this way. I've done a lot of TV interviews and a lot of podcasts, and they've all been just like we're doing now. So you have to just say, I'm going to take the culture that I've created and I'm going to do it as best as I possibly can, even if that means setting the camera next to you while you're eating lunch, and eating lunch with one of those people that you used to eat lunch with, while they're eating lunch in their house with the camera next to them. I mean, it's just something. I had to do it over Thanksgiving with my parents. It wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but it sure beat not having them at all. So.
Absolutely. So I love that. So making time to just connect and do the things you do, in person, but over Zoom or over whatever platform you have.
Yeah.
Well, it's so evident just reading your book, speaking to you, listening to you in other interviews I've seen, and just knowing you through your work with Blue Collar Cash, how much you care. So first off, thank you for your time. Thank you for writing this book.
Thank you.
I know you're doing a lot of really great work, and you have a partnership as well with Make-A-Wish Foundation. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're up to with them?
Yeah, I've been sponsoring Make-A-Wish for about 20 years now. I think it's an amazing organization. And one of the things that we do is we just don't send them money. What we do is we sponsor a wish every single year, but we meet the family, we talk with them, we give them, a pre-party for their wish, and then an after party after they get back from their wish. And we kind of talk about their whole experience. And it's a really great thing for your staff to be involved in something like that, because they recognize that they work for a company that doesn't just, give money away and feel good about it. They actually get involved in things. And I think that's a beautiful thing for people that work in your company, to actually get involved in those types of things. So what I'm doing now is I've just announced a long-term commitment with Make-A-Wish America, which is the national company. And what I'm doing is I'm giving away all the author proceeds from Blue Collar Cash towards sponsoring wishes this year. So, I'm trying to get as many wishes as I can granted before the end of the year, which I think would be really cool. So if you buy the book, that not only will you get some great information, but you might have a great gift for somebody, which knocks one of those gifts off your off your list there. But you'll also know that you're helping someone who's suffering to not have to wait one more day on one of their wishes, which is something that we find is really amazing, especially this time of year. So I hope people would go out and support the book and know that they're supporting Make-A-Wish at the same time.
That is honestly incredible. I don't know of any other author who does that. So thank you for sharing that with us, and for your time today. I just want to remind anyone watching, if you have any interest in purchasing 25 plus copies for your team or your organization or anyone on your holiday list, please do feel free to reach out to me at carlin@bookpal.com. And as you heard, this will help benefit Make-A-Wish America through Ken and his organization, which is truly amazing. As a reminder, we will be sending out the recording of this webinar next week, so do be on the lookout for that. Our next AuthorConnect chat will be on January 6th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, with Karen Hurt and David Dye. We'll be chatting with them about their new book, Courageous Cultures. And we have 3 winners today who will be getting signed copies of Blue Collar Cash. Congratulations to Rachel H., Patrick C., and Brian C. We'll be reaching out to you to get your best mailing address. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you again to Ken for joining us. And we just hope everyone continues to stay safe and healthy and have a great holiday season.
Thanks for having me. Happy holidays, everyone. I really appreciate it.